JD Vance's interview on CNN is unbelievably pathetic, and it is the reflection of a man who is, number one, bereft of any and all charisma. He's not funny, he's not interesting, he can't compel a crowd to believe anything. Zero, zilch, nada, nothing. If my bloodline led to someone like JD Vance, I'd be begging God to just end it all. Like, God, please, like, get rid of him, get rid of him. Vance tries his best to run defense for some of the most ridiculous statements that both he and Donald Trump have made. And it doesn't end well. By the way, I also see people saying stuff like, oh, you know, JD Vance is so horrible, he's so bad. Donald Trump should really think about getting rid of JD Vance. Let me tell you guys something. JD Vance being as atrocious of a speaker as he is probably what Donald Trump likes. Donald Trump absolutely despises being outshone or outshined, or whatever the word is, by his VP. If you watch Alyssa Farah Griffin's Frontline PBS interview, I'm going to quote it all the time, she spoke about how working for Mike Pence oftentimes came with the Trump end of the team being like, hey, Pence is outshining Trump a little bit here. Get Pence to shut the fuck up. Tell him to be quiet. Tell him to chill out. Y'all ever wondered why Mike Pence never talks? You ever wondered that? You ever wondered why Mike Pence was always like this? You remember that conversation with Trump, Pence, Pelosi, and Schumer, and Mike Pence was over there like, you think it's a coincidence? It's not. Trump specifically does not like his VP outshining him. Vance is everything Trump could ever ask for. A VP who's infinitely less charismatic than Trump. Perfect for him. So let's get into the interview. I wanted to highlight that for you guys, because people are like, why won't Trump get rid of Vance? Why would he get a VP that could outshine him? Never. Trump is all about him first, then everyone else comes second.
Vice President Harris, in her interview with CNN last night, said she would put a Republican in the cabinet. Do you and Donald Trump commit to putting a Democrat in the cabinet if you're elected?
Yeah, of course, John. And we've got Democrats who are actively on the team. Tulsi Gabbard, who ran against Kamala Harris in the 2020 Democrat primary, RFK Jr. These guys have all come on board the Donald Trump ticket. And why have they done that, John? Because our party is the party of common sense. We don't agree on everything. We may disagree about tax policy or environmental policy, but we think we should have a closed border. We think American families should be able to afford housing and food, and we want calm and peace all over the world, not the world in constant conflict that Kamala Harris has delivered. So we've got a great big ticket with Democrats, Republicans, and independents on the Donald Trump team, and we're going to keep on running that way, and then we're going to govern that way when we win.
You want a closed border, but you blocked the border bill that was bipartisan, written by a Republican, backed by Joe Biden and his administration, and they acknowledged it was a very conservative border bill. A lot of Democrats didn't like it. They compromised, and guess who stopped it? Donald Trump. And yet JD Vance sees fit to sit there and say they're concerned about having a closed border. No, you are not, first and foremost. He talks about recruiting RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. Explain to me the spines that they have. What spine does Tulsi Gabbard have? Zero. That's a woman who served in the U.S. Army who supports Trump. She has no spine. What kind of democratic values, liberal values would she bring to a Trump administration? She can't even look the man in the face and say, why did you say this about John McCain? Why did you say this about John McCain? She can't even bring herself to do that. Tulsi Gabbard is going to be Democratic representation in a Trump administration? Stop. Then he says RFK. RFK is on his last brain cell. And I think he shares it with JD Vance. JD Vance has it on loan. Let's keep it 100. What could RFK bring to what liberal values does RFK have besides the neocons and war? Like, shut the fuck up. The only thing RFK brings is cozying up to Vladimir Putin. Is that a liberal democratic value? No. Oh, by the way, JD Vance sits there and says, we might disagree on this and that. Talk about how you guys disagree with us on democracy. You're the same guy who sat there and said you would have done what Mike Pence didn't do. If the founding fathers could see this, bro, I'm just saying. This is a man who has direct conflict with democracy. This is a man who has direct beef with democracy, talking about slight differences and lack of agreement with Democrats. Talk about how you guys have given up on the system of America and our democratic republic. Talk to us about that.
You cited Robert Kennedy Jr. What role could you see him playing in a Trump administration? What cabinet position?
Well, I don't want to commit Bobby to anything, but look, he's a very, very smart guy. He's got a lot of interesting ideas about why do we have an obesity epidemic in our country? What is going on with our food system? How can we better ensure that Americans are living healthy lives? So I hope that Bobby plays some role in answering some of the big questions, and we'll see what that looks like. Of course, he's joined the transition team where I serve as the honorary chair. We're going to work with everybody. Again, we don't have to agree on every issue, John, but what I love about President Trump's campaign is that we're talking to everybody, we're going everywhere, and we're trying to persuade the American people that we can win with this big tent party and we can govern effectively.
Would you trust Robert Kennedy on issues around vaccines? Could you see him involved with health policy that way?
Well, look, again, John, I don't agree with Robert Kennedy. I don't agree with Bobby on everything. I've gotten to know him. I think he's a very smart guy. But again, while I might not agree with him on everything about vaccines, I do agree with him that something is clearly messed up about our food system because we have a terrible obesity problem. And I certainly agree with him back in 2020 that we should not be masking toddlers and keeping young children out of schools. He was right about that, while a lot of public health experts were wrong. And this is my point, John, is you don't have to agree with everybody, but when you're willing to listen to big voices and you're not trying to censor people, but you're trying to have a debate with people, I think it surfaces the best policy and allows the best ideas to rise to the top.
This is absolute BS. You all have zero intention of pushing back on Kennedy's BS concerning vaccines. Zero intention. You guys do not combat the radical, insane voices of your party, ever. You don't. You just don't. Stop pretending like, oh, we'll keep RFK on a tight leash. No, you won't. No, you absolutely won't. I'm pretty sure RFK is gunning for some kind of health position in the Trump administration. It's funny how JD Vance tries to play it off like, I don't agree with RFK on this and on that and blah, blah, blah. Well, what about Trump? Y'all remember that phone call with RFK and Trump that was recorded where they were talking about vaccines? So JD Vance might not agree with Kennedy on vaccines, but someone seems to. Trump, the boss himself, seems to agree with RFK on vaccines. These people pretend like, oh, there's room for all sorts of ideology on our side. No, there is not. No, they're ideology you already agree with. Ideology you already accept and are trying to push. Stop trying to pretend like you're not in line with RFK on vaccines. Why even pretend? This is literally just lie after lie after lie.
Vice President Harris, in the interview last night, says she'd like to see a culture shift, not based on you beating people down, a politics where you beat people down, but a politics where you lift people up. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the idea of lifting people up in politics?
Look, I think it's a great idea, John. The problem is that Kamala Harris hasn't governed like that during her 3.5 years as vice president. If she wants to tackle the affordability crisis, if she wants to lift people up and inspire this country, why hasn't she done it for the last 3.5 years? I think most Americans think that we're on the wrong track. I think what Donald Trump really believes is the way to lift people up is to open the country to all voices, to not try to censor people that you disagree with, to have a conversation with somebody rather than try to shut them up. We have to remember back in 2019, Kamala Harris wanted to kick Donald Trump off of all social media. We believe in debating and having a conversation with our fellow Americans, agree or disagree. That's how you lift this country up, not by shutting people down, making life unaffordable for their families.
Is that why you guys are trying to put tariffs on everything and then denying that it'll have any effect on prices of goods? Is that why you guys literally sit there and want Putin to be able to invade whoever he wants, but simultaneously complain about inflation, despite the fact that that war had an effect on inflation and global prices? Are we serious right now? And then he sits there and says Kamala Harris didn't govern like somebody who wanted a culture of cooperation and proper communication. The guy you're running with literally told congresswomen of color to go back to their crime-infested countries. That's the guy you're running with. A man who told congresswomen of color to go back to their crime-infested countries. How can you sit there and accuse anyone of running a campaign of hatred and division when you literally align with Donald Trump? Kamala Harris was a mostly quiet vice president. Didn't hear much from her. She didn't make any big stinks. She didn't really get in the way. She wasn't really all up in the videos. She wasn't doing all of that. She wasn't doing any of that. And her rhetoric was never insane. Donald Trump is the same one who tried to get Chrissy Teigen's tweet about him being a ass bitch taken off of Twitter. Republicans are not about debate. What they're about is bringing lies to conversation and being unwilling to acknowledge when they are lies. Furthermore, they're not about debate because when they lose, what do? They say, you know what? Fuck the game. We'll take the game from you. These people, when they lost the election last time, said, you know what? Fuck democracy. We're not leaving. And we'll do whatever it is we have to do to stay, even if it's illegal. Even if it means subverting democracy, we'll stay forever. That's effectively what's happened. That is what's happened here. So for JD Vance to sit there and pretend like his party represents the party of kindness or honesty or openness to other ideas, no. Because when the country says, hey, like, we're not really into, anti-abortion policy, anti-gay marriage policy, racist rhetoric and stuff like that. We're not really into that anymore. We're moving toward a brighter tomorrow. You guys decide to hold democracy hostage. How is that free debate? How is that free discourse when you're willing to take away people's right to determine the future of the country if you don't get the outcome you want? Stop playing.
You were talking about Donald Trump's social media. Would you describe his posts over the last 48 hours as lifting people up, quoting, reposting QAnon statements, reposting these misogynistic memes about Vice President Harris and Hillary Clinton? That's the kind of open discussion that you think is lifting people up?
Oh, John, I think if you look at Donald Trump's full campaign appearances and, yes, his social media appearances, what you see is two things. A guy with an agenda to lower prices and bring back American prosperity, and a political candidate who isn't stodgy, who likes to have some fun and likes to tell some jokes. I'd much rather have a candidate who's willing to go off script, who's willing to give every interview, and is willing to tell some jokes. I do think that's how you lift people up. A politics of boring scolds telling people they can't laugh, that is not lifting Americans up. That's how to tear us down.
You just, like a second ago, said that Harris was divisive for her 3 years as VP. Which is it? Do you want a candidate who's divisive or not? You can't sit there and say, oh, Kamala Harris, despite never even talking for 3 years straight, barely even hearing anything from her, she's really divisive. Her last 3 years, horrible for the country. Donald Trump basically saying that Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton used sexual favors to establish themselves in politics. That's cool, though. That's okay. JD Vance, you do realize you just excused a former president of the United States belittling two highly accomplished women and reducing them to their sexuality, taking any and all accomplishment away from them and reducing them to what they are instead of who they are. And not even just what they are, but a disgusting sexual portrayal of what a woman is when they've acquired power. That is disgusting. Disgusting. This is the same guy, by the way, who tried to use the I have a daughter excuse when people were like, hey, like, you're shitting on people for like not having kids, or you're trying to support policies that make it harder for people to have kids. What do you have to say for yourself as a man who has a daughter? My daughter's 2. You have a daughter, and you think it's appropriate to speak of women in this way. This is the problem with a MAGA future, is as a woman, you can't even thrive and succeed without somebody being like, is that DEI over there? Like, did you suck penis to get to where you are? That's the world we're walking into. That is the world we walk into with people like JD Vance and Trump. And look at this little smarmy little smile. As soon as he brings up something Trump says, come on. Come on. I was disgusted when I saw that, because it's like, now women can't thrive in politics without being some kind of like DEI hire, or there's this conspiracy about sexual favors being done for them to succeed to get to where they are. It's like you can never do enough. You can never study enough. You can never work hard enough. You can never work long hours enough. You can never sacrifice enough. You can never do enough. You can never, it's never enough. It's never enough. Because you're a woman in the eyes of people like Trump and Vance. And he thinks it's just jokes. It's just jokes. I like a candidate who said, no, you don't. 5 seconds ago, you were acting like Kamala Harris was divisive. Which is it? Is divisiveness okay or not? Sitting there talking about, I like candidates who can go off script. That's the problem with y'all. Trump keep going off script. People on the far right think it's Jews, conspiring to overthrow Trump's campaign. When in reality, it's just Trump. They think it's the campaign staffers advising Trump that are killing the campaign. When in reality, it's just Trump. He goes off script, he says stupid stuff on stage, and he takes hits to his campaign. Whose fault is that? Donald Trump. Is Trump interested in taking accountability for that? No. Zero. Is Trump interested in taking accountability for that? No. It's always someone else's fault, according to far-right Trumpers. It's the staffers, the Jews, it's people working in the campaign. It's never just Donald Trump's inability to be a unifying, tactful speaker. It's always someone or something else. And these are the same people who preach to women and minorities about taking accountability. Okay. Sick world we're living in. Sick world, folks.
Fun and jokes. Last night, after CNN released a small clip of the Harris interview, you on Twitter posted a clip from a Miss Teen USA beauty pageant from 2007, Caitlin Upton, and you wrote, I have gotten a hold of the full Kamala Harris CNN interview. Now, this thing that surfaced around the internet for a few years, she struggled answering a question back in this beauty pageant. I'm not sure you're aware, in 2015, Caitlin Upton did an interview with New York Magazine about all the social media attention this clip got, and she said, I definitely went through a period where I was very, very depressed, but I never let anybody see that stuff except for people I could trust. I had some very dark moments where I thought about committing suicide. So when you posted this last night, were you aware that the woman you were posting a picture of had contemplated committing suicide for the attention it received?
This game, you're not ready for.
No, certainly not, John, and my heart goes out to her, and I hope that she's doing well. Look, I've said a lot of things on camera. I've said a lot of stupid things on camera. Sometimes when you're in the public eye, you make mistakes, and again, I think the best way to deal with it is to laugh at ourselves, laugh at this stuff, and try to have some fun in politics. I posted a meme from 20 years ago, and I think the fact that we're talking about that instead of the fact that American families can't afford groceries or health care, young families can't afford to buy a home to raise their families in. Those are the real crises that we should focus on. And there's nothing that says that we can't tell some jokes along the way while we deal with the very serious business of bringing back our public policy. Politics has gotten way too lame, John, way too boring. You can have some fun while making a good argument to the American people about how you're going to improve their lives.
Okay, I just want to be clear, though. You said you didn't know. Would you like to apologize to Caitlin Upton for posting that last night, given what you've now learned?
John, I'm not going to apologize for posting a joke, but I wish the best for Caitlin. I hope that she's doing well. And again, what I'd say is one bad moment shouldn't define anybody, and the best way to deal with this stuff is to laugh at ourselves.
I would have just taken it down. People can say whatever they want, like, oh, you're too soft, or oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm not above taking stuff down. If someone's like, hey, look, this was way too embarrassing for me, I really don't want this stuff being, involved in politics and this resurfacing, I just say, hey, look, if this bothered you that much, I'll take it down. I'm more than happy to just take it down. JD Vance can never be wrong. He can never be incorrect. And notice what he said, politics is too boring. He's basically admitting to the fact that his side of the political aisle is the source of the confusion, the buffoonery, and the chaos. He wants to have it both ways. Kamala Harris was too silent and she was never around, and where was she? Where was Kamala? Oh, Kamala Harris was so divisive and so destructive while she was VP. Which is it? Which is it? Kamala Harris was so divisive. We should be able to make jokes. Like, pick one. The jokes you guys make are crazy. They're crazy. They're divisive and insane. JD Vance can never be wrong. You know, like, that would have been a perfect opportunity for Vance to even look like he's a human being. Like, oh, you know what? If she had those kinds of thoughts about that video going viral, I'm more than happy to remove the video. And guess what? That probably would, you know, endear JD Vance to a lot of people. Like, damn, the guy has a heart. You know, he doesn't, well, you know what's funny is JD Vance can't take it down. JD Vance isn't funny. He's not funny. Jokes, he's got like humor poverty. He's broke. He don't got, brother, niggas, he's in poverty. He don't got no jokes. He's not funny. He's scraping in trash cans for any joke he can find. And then when he finds one, y'all are telling him to give it up? Of course he's not gonna give it up. He can barely make a joke on his own. He's obviously scrounging for whatever jokes he can find. Obviously, JD Vance is not gonna give up something he thinks is funny. It's not gonna happen. He's desperate for something to land. So when I see people sitting, you know, saying stuff like, oh, JD Vance, delete that. Yeah, he probably should delete it. But is he going to do it? Absolutely not. The biggest takeaway from this entire interview is just lie after lie after lie after misrepresentation after misrepresentation. Their entire movement is based off of fantasy. Misrepresentation, cap, lie, whatever term you want to use, their entire camp, everything they stand for is a lie. It is a lie, it's obfuscation, it's projection, it's an inability, a refusal to ever acknowledge one's own wrongdoing and to project any wrongdoing onto the other side. Kamala Harris did govern like someone who wanted less divisiveness, but stand back and stand by as the guy whose campaign I'm attached to basically calls, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris the Haktua twins. What are we doing? Like this, we're allowing this to happen? This should have never been allowed. He should have read the tweet out completely to JD Vance. He should have read out what Trump retweeted verbatim to JD Vance and made him address it. CNN is too soft. Too soft. But this is what happens when you have people with no charisma, no talent, no humor, whose job is to simply sit up there and repeat something on a teleprompter. They can't risk their careers and go independent. They can't. And we've seen it time and time again. The majority of these people don't have the skills necessary to go independent, so they sit there and let JD Vance get away with such an easy dunk. Whatever. I'm not going to stress myself out any more than I have to. Like, you can't make this up. These people are super villains of the highest order. The highest. JD Vance over there talking about some Kamala Harris didn't govern like she wanted less division. Like, what are you talking about? It is what it is. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.